So here's my handiwork for the last several days. Took more time than I thought, but got it done. On the left hand side over here you've got pulse width modulated, these are solid state Gila fans. You can get these on Amazon. Just go Gila solid state relay and it'll show up. And they're like rated at 32 amps continuously supposedly, but a lot of guys say 20 amps is the max you should run them at. Anyway, radiator fan 1, 2, blower for the HVAC system, seat heater 1 and 2. I'll just have a little potentiometer for each of them. You can sort of dial in the amount of heat you want. And then the nitrous main solenoid, fuel injector, harness and fuel pump, and then the AC air conditioning compressor. I'm running a 12 volt Danfoss compressor. Provides more than enough cooling for the car, and I'm actually going to mount I'll show you all this when I get it. I'm not going to get the compressor for a couple of months, it's on back order, but it's a relatively small unit that's only like 6 by 8 inches. I can mount it in the engine compartment and just make sure it gets cool air, and hook it up to an evaporator that'll sit above the blower, actually in the rain tray, with a little box around it so it'll suck cold air in, and then I'll have the condenser under the car actually, with some fans, some electric fans to keep it cool. So yeah, I'm going to have cool air in my GTI, which will be awesome because my original GTI did not have that, and I don't want to have any pumps attached to the crankshaft to reduce parasitic power. And this particular air conditioning system should only take 5 to 10 amps on low, and maybe as much as 20 to 25 amps on absolute high, so yeah, I'm sure I'll be able to keep up with it. So along the top here I've got the, I haven't got the little micro relays plugged in right now, but headlights low and high for my HIDs, and then parking lights, wipers low and high, washer fluid pump, horn, nitrous purge, alternator cutout, because I'm going to turn off the alternator at full throttle, and then left and right turn signals, and then a spare. So voltage comes in here, gets distributed to the panels, and these are fuse panels, and this is my ignition solenoid to turn all the power on and off. So there we go. I'm going to mount it in the car, and everything's all wired up now, and I can start plugging the cable harnesses in the car to it. Thought I'd talk about crimping and soldering and heat shrinking wire for a sec. So, and the tools involved. So this is not super expensive. It's I think $75 on Amazon. It's a hydraulic 12-ton crimping press for doing things like well, the brakes, the battery terminals. So these, oops, focus those terminals. So getting the crimps here. It's a hex crimp, and it's basically oxygen free, and then you use a heat shrink that has got a meltable adhesive inside to seal it. So that creates awesome connectors. And then, there's no way around using, these types of single crimp connectors, but I got pretty sick and tired of using bullshit tools like this. They suck. First of all, it's very hard to get enough pressure the way there's no leverage. So using a tool like this, a heck of a lot more leverage to it. It's wider, so the crimp is wider, and it really is deeper. So obviously use the right gauge terminal for the right gauge wire and all the rest of it, and then again, heat shrinking. But I like to solder a lot of these connectors. So let me just pop the top off here so I can show you. So a lot of these terminals here, well, all of them have been soldered. So once I crimped them, I then soldered them using a high power Weller soldering iron. I'll show you in a sec the one I use. Same one that my father used 50, 60 years ago. What other tools I use? Cheap but very effective wire strippers to get the exact length you need. Wire. Okay, so go to some place like Summit, and you can get wire up to 20 gauge or 18 gauge, 20 gauge from Summit, and then there's great automotive, and you gotta get high temperature, like automotive grade wire, and it's got a nice soft silky feel to it, and it won't melt. So I ended up with 22 gauge, so I got a bunch of, actually I'll show you. So I went onto eBay. There's a vendor that sells automotive grade wire on eBay, and basically it's the real deal. It's like you get 10 or 12 different colors and 100 feet at a time, and this is 22 gauge, which is and this is the XS ECU cable harness stuff. So as I've cut that to the length, I've got all these spare lengths of sort of 10-12 foot lengths of 22 gauge wire. So anywhere I go 22 gauge, 20 gauge, 18, 14, 12, 10, and then number 4, number 2, and then 1/0. And then this is the just a cheap OTC brand, and this is the I think they call it double walled, but basically it's a thick tube with glue inside, and then your heat gun. And over here, obviously, this is classic, the Model D650. This has been around for a million years, man. 300 watts, and it's great when you're trying to melt solder onto big thick pieces of metal that little crappy soldering irons, 25 watt soldering irons won't touch. So this is fast and efficient. So anyway, that's the wiring story for the day. Well, this is the Blaupunkt SQL26 Denver, and it's close to the original GTI look and feel. It's got a digital display. Some of the GTIs actually came with the analog sweep dial, but same shuttle mechanism control, same basic layout. So I'm going to have this as an option to swap in and out with the Concord HPL-130, which I'll show you next. That's the one that I bought in October of 1982. I read the Car and Driver, Road and Track, and Motor Trend front page reviews saying the GTI was the car of the year, and I ran out and bought the Concord DBX stereo unit to have it ready to go the moment that my car was delivered, which is exactly what happened. The car arrived and I swapped the stereo out, so now I actually have my old Concord. Again, it was a cassette deck, but replaced this, but I'll have both of these units available to swap in and out. Yeah, so this is the system I bought in October of 1982. It's the Concord HPL-130 cassette deck with the DBX noise reduction, which is about a 33 decibel noise improvement on tape. So it gives you 100 decibel signal to noise ratio, or dynamic range, and almost 100 decibel or 85, 90 decibel signal to noise ratio. So CD quality sound for the most part out of a 30-something-year-old analog system. So this was the cat's meow back in the day. Anyway, this is what I'm going to be stuffing in the dash. So get back to oldies but goodies, and then I'll have this plugged into the kicker 1200 watt amp and all that stuff, right? And the Hertz speakers. So fun. So here's the rat's nest of wires. So I got the panel installed, and now I've just got to terminate everything to that panel there. And then I've got my power and to everything I need, so I can basically declare success on the relocation. The old fuse panel is fucking under there, just a hugely difficult place to get to. And now you can flip this thing down and get access to everything very easily. So hopefully that's all going to work out nicely.